36 states and hovering on the edge of bankruptcy, the UFC created a multi-billion-dollar global industry that seemingly emerged out of thin air, bringing wealth and opportunity to those who previously had neither. Today, collegiate and Olympic wrestlers, judo specialists, and other mixed martial artists have a professional outlet for their athletic endeavors that barely existed 15 years ago, Ratner told Congress. First conceived as a marketing pitch for a beer importer in the early 1990s, the UFC built an entirely new sport around the idea of testing the real combat effectiveness of different martial arts. Fighters trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, Sambo, and dozens of other disciplines were locked inside a chain-link cage and made to fight until one was knocked out, choked unconscious, or forced to submit to the pain of a joint lock. Over time, the differences between the disciplines began to blur, and a new sport emerged from the amalgam: mixed martial arts. The UFC has made millionaires out of dozens upon dozens of fighters who've become students of this new hybrid discipline. And it's created billions in spillover revenue for hotels, arena concessions, apparel companies, video game publishers, energy drink makers, sports bars, and gym owners. Even the UFC's competitors have benefited from its success. With a thriving global market, dozens of regional and international promotions have offered the public their own particular variations on cage fighting, including Bellator, Professional Fight League, Cage Warriors, One Fighting Championship, and Extreme Fighting Championship. The UFC's success has also forced many to reconsider the role violence plays in society. What Arizona Senator John McCain infamously called human cockfighting in 1996, and what the New York Times described as part of a pay-per-view prism onto the decline of Western civilization, is now spoken of in more admiring terms, as a kind of human chess played out in real time between two bodies. While the objective is still leaving someone as close to death as you possibly could, as UFC veteran Jorge Masvidal once put it, the spectacle of near-death experiences no longer feels as scandalous as it did when the UFC first debuted in 1993. Head kicks that land with the force of a 2x4, submission holds that tear ligaments and muscle from the bone, chokes that starve the brain of oxygen. None of this seems as instinctively wrong as it did to many at UFC 1. To the contrary, today, mixed martial arts has become commonplace as a form of personal fitness, as popular and accessible as yoga or Pilates. The UFC has its own gym franchise with more than 150 locations in 37 countries. American Top Team, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Academies, American Kickboxing Academy, Straight Blast Gym, Tiger Schulman's Martial Arts, and dozens of other chains also have their own global networks, with locations in Rome, Johannesburg, Moscow, Phuket, Mexico City, and Minot, North Dakota. Celebrities have flocked to mixed martial arts training, including Demi Lovato, Will Smith, Kate Upton, Halle Berry, Wiz Khalifa, Idris Elba, Shaquille O'Neal, Russell Brand, Tool's Maynard James Keenan, and the late Anthony Bourdain. Some have even become decorated black belts, including comedian Kevin James and former Modern Family star Ed O'Neill. Yet, despite the success, many of the UFC's events often feel like throwaways, as if something about the company's public identity can't always match the reality of its business, where fights have to be held regardless of whether they serve any larger point or purpose. As I walked through the streets of downtown Newark on my way to the arena earlier that morning, there were few signs that one of the world's most popular sporting companies was in town for an event. I only saw one other person on the street who was clearly headed to the same place I was, a man dressed as Chuck Liddell, with satiny blue Iceman shorts, UFC gloves, and a recently shaved mohawk, who was walking next to a woman in a t-shirt and jeans.